Hello everyone and welcome to GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run over here on youtube.com/GodSaw. It is currently June the 1st. It's late in the night, June the 1st. Well, kind of late in the night, I guess, on that one. And I have just gotten done with watching NXT Takeover 25 about a few hours ago. We will be going over that in this episode. It's been a while since we've done a traditional episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, where we go through Raw, SmackDown, all that type of stuff. We won't go through NXT's weekly show because NXT TakeOver just happened, so we won't necessarily go through that at this point in time. But we will be going over NXT TakeOver 25 and how I felt about that show. Also, as mentioned before, we will be going over Raw and SmackDown this week as well, and basically how I felt about those shows to go along with it. Also, I will be talking about Jon Moxley's appearance on Talk Is Jericho, which came out on Wednesday and kind of set the, well, maybe not just the internet on storm, but the wrestling world a storm on that particular one. And I'll be going over not necessarily just everything that he said in the show, but basically how I felt about the appearance, everything to go along with it, and yeah, just everything to go along with that in general. But before we do go into that, because I want to talk about the Jon Moxley thing first, but before we go into that, I do want to kind of give a quick gauge of what I've been doing over here. I've been taking a break from doing the traditional episodes, where I've only really been doing kind of pay-per-view reviews, and even to a certain degree haven't been doing that recently. I've been wanting to get myself back into this again, and I kind of, I won't necessarily felt burnt out on everything, but I was kind of in a state where, physically wise, I wasn't always up to doing everything. And you probably have seen that in the terms of content coming out on the YouTube channel, everything to go along with that. A few things have changed on that side, where I'm getting a little bit more of the content out there. I did do Money in the Bank simulations, and I did do Double or Nothing simulations, and I'm beginning to release other gaming content over here as well. And of course, I want to start doing the wrestling podcast again to go along with that. And this is kind of one of those things to go along with those particular sides. Other things that people may have known from other previous videos on that one is that I've been having some computer issues, still having those issues at this point in time. So I have no idea if this video is going to fully get out there, because of my computer could just randomly crash at any point in time. I think it ends up being a graphics card issue or a CPU issue at this point. I did fix one issue that was with the hard drive. That one's done, but there's obviously other problems to go along with that. That will be done over time. I've been kind of working around are doing some workarounds with those particular ones. But with that being said, things that I've been doing recently, I have been doing a little bit more Twitch streaming recently. Usually on Wednesday nights, I've been doing some kind of single player, or that also is kind of held for streaming simulations for the pay-per-views on that one, which do later come over to YouTube. I've been also playing Final Fantasy IX on Wednesdays as well. But on Friday nights, we've been kind of making that kind of a wrestling night. So at 7 o'clock West Coast time, or Pacific Standard Time, or I guess in this case it would be 9 o'clock Arizona, or not 9 o'clock, but 7 o'clock Arizona time as well, where I'm currently living. On that, it is Impact Wrestling, and you get to watch it on Twitch. But the other really good thing about that on Twitch is that you can co-stream the actual show, which means if you've seen live reactions on my channel in the past, or on anyone or on any other channels to go along with it, you're not really allowed to show the actual video of the show itself in any way, shape, or form. With Impact Wrestling, they actually have a different thing where you can actually co-stream the Impact Wrestling show, and you can do it on your channel. So I can take the Impact Wrestling show from Impact Wrestling and co-stream it live while they're streaming it. And I can also add my own commentary, my own live reactions, everything to go along with that as well over on my Twitch page, which should be down in the link in the description on that one. And I do that every Friday night for those 2 hours, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying getting back into Impact Wrestling again. We've been doing it for about a month. I'm going to continue on doing it from here on in for at least a little while longer. Again, I've been having a lot of fun doing it, and also with those particular streams as well. So that's been a lot of fun. Also, like I said, I've been wanting to get some more things going here. It's been a little bit, I've been kind of going through the video footage that I have to see what's going on. And I do have some old contents that I don't think is actually good enough to really release anymore, because I had some Dead or Alive 6 footage that I had that was right before the most recent patch, so it didn't have the new stuff that they had in there on that one. I know this is the wrestling side, so I won't barge too much into that, but it's like a bunch of, it is some old content, but it's not necessarily up to date with what the current patch is at, so I don't think I'm going to end up releasing that. I'm just going to have to make some new footage on that one. So, with that out of the way, basically where we've been going, I know it's been about 6 minutes into, I'm watching over here on my XSplit. It's been about 6 minutes into the show already, and we haven't really talked too much wrestling. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and start with what the big deal is throughout this entire week, which was Jon Moxley, Dean Ambrose's appearance on Talk Is Jericho, which got released on Wednesday, everywhere where Jericho's podcast is found, which is like Spotify and a bunch of other ones. I did sit down and listen to the entire hour-and-a-half episode that was, and I'm going to go off and say this was a very well-done episode of Talk Is Jericho on that one. I've listened to some of them in the past. I don't always listen to every week for Talk Is Jericho, but I did want to take a point of listening into this one, and I thought this was a very good episode on that one. Dean Ambrose himself came off very well in this in this one. Jon Moxley came off very well, and not as a guy who comes off as bitter or anything like that. At least not in my mind. He even basically said how grateful he was for certain aspects of being in WWE and growing up and becoming more mature and everything to go along with that. And just the way he came off throughout the entire episode came off really well done, and he kind of got his grievances off his chest and didn't really do it in any sense of the word in a disrespectful way as well. And just he basically went over everything that had happened over the last, say, year or so, after he came back from injury to him leaving the WWE and then showing up at Double or Nothing, which they didn't really talk about. This was one of the aspects I liked about Talk Is Jericho, is that Jericho himself does play a little bit of kayfabe in these particular things. He even makes a point at the beginning of the episode of saying this was filmed a couple of days before Double or Nothing, and that, you know, if he knew what Moxley was going to do at Double or Nothing, because he makes a conscious effort of saying he knew that he was coming, he didn't know he was going to attack Jericho, that if he was here right now, I would slap him in the face. And he does a couple of other things with like Kenny and the Bucks and everything about not being thanked and everything to go along with it. He plays up kayfabe decently in these things to go along with it, because he knows he's going to be working stories with these guys very soon. But also the differences between his talk in the interview and his talk that's not necessarily in the interview, that's kind of voiced over otherwise, I thought came off really well and was fairly entertaining with that as well. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the aspect of what Jon Moxley said throughout the entire episode. And it kind of, I won't say it broke the internet, but it put the internet a storm. Not just the internet, but the wrestling world a storm of everything he said in this particular episode. I'm not really going to go over everything that he said, because it's been out there for a few days now. I'm filming this a little bit later because I usually do this on a weekly basis, usually a Saturday or a Sunday. on that one. So it has been out there for a few days now. We pretty much know what he said. The stuff that he had, the stuff that he was uncomfortable with the whole Roman situation got brought up in there, and how he felt when he did say that line. That everybody was like, "Whoa, they went there." Moment where about talking about Roman's leukemia at the time, and him cutting a promo that was while he was still kind of while he was still trying to fight it at that point. Also his talk, and he didn't release the line that was supposed to be said, but he even said there was a rumor that they tried to talk him into a line that could have gotten rid of sponsors, which is nuts to think about. But Dean was like, literally no on those particular ones, which, like I said, throughout this entire, which is crazy to think that they would consider going that far of thinking of a line that could potentially lose sponsorship, such as a Susan G. Coleman or anything else on that one. And then they would even fathom trying to convince somebody to try to say it on that side of everything. But to all of its extents of what is being said, especially towards Vince and everything on that one, that's what the main take that you get from it. And I feel like this is something that we've kind of already known, but it's being confirmed right before our eyes, is that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So a lot of the creative process is done originally through the writing team, which they're writing, which a lot of people are feeling like they're writing for Vince McMahon, something that he will be entertained by, not necessarily the world will be entertained by, but what Vince would be entertained by. And then of course it eventually gets to Vince itself for approval on that one. He even talks about trying to get a line out of a promo before it got to Vince with that involved a pooper scooper, because he knew Vince would just love it, and there would be no way of getting it out of the particular promo. On that one. And this is a lot of the talk that he was going through was more promo stuff. It wasn't necessarily match stuff, or even to a certain degree where he was on the card on that one. It was basically his creative side and how he feels wrestling should be, and what WWE feels like it should be. More importantly, not necessarily just how WWE feels like it should be, how Vince thinks it should be. In Vince's mind with everyone is, we have these writers, they're going to come up with your promos, everything like that, and you should just be able to read them verbatim. We know your characters. We quote unquote, he has that feeling of he knows your character better than you know your character on that particular one. Even to the point of saying it's like, through a promo that it was like, I have to go about what Dean said, going through a promo of what he had done that day, such as riding a unicycle backwards, something like sharing a pizza with a homeless guy. A bunch of different stuff would go along with it. Stuff that he said would be stuff that he would say that would be or at least in Jon Moxley's mind, he felt like this was something of, something that someone not so inclined, or basically he said it's like, this is what an idiot would do. This would be like basically a cartoon character would do on a daily basis. They would do something wacky and outlandish and everything. And so he tries to go to Vince about it, and it's like, no, this is really good. This is good. I won't fully go on there because I'm not a person who generally curses all that much, but he did throw the S-bomb in there, and Vince was basically like, no, this is really good. This is you. It's different. You're different, and this is what the people like about you, is that you're just different. And it's like, Dean's like, so I'm an idiot? No, you're just different. On that one. So he was trying to play it off as like, no, it's not, we don't portray you as that. It's like, and that, and and he goes about talking that, most people are trying to get in there without making themselves look foolish on a daily basis, and trying to come up with something that doesn't make them look foolish on a daily basis. And it was an interesting listen. That much I'm going to say. You could definitely get that feeling from Dean at this point that he's like super relaxed about being out on his own again and away from the WWE. It feels like that maybe, like basically he feels like the way that wrestling should be is that the wrestlers do come up with stuff, and they don't just have to, you know, have a team of writers that go along with it. And that was the take that I got from this one, is that he feels like the wrestlers, okay, the promoters and the bookers and everything, they should come up with the initial storyline, but it's like bullet points. And then you guys come up with the promos and where it goes from here, here, and here, and here to get to the end. Where WWE side, it's like this massive team of writers, and there's many cooks in the kitchen, and like all these like groups. I think they say there's like 37 writers that write the 2 weekly TV shows, and they're writing down everything, and they're doing like scripting the promo verbatim to say, and even, and then eventually gets to Vince for approval. Well, it feels like those writers are writing for Vince, not for the world to watch, but for Vince to watch what he likes, because they're so scared. Like, is it because they're scared for their jobs or anything to go along with that? Who knows, on those particular ones. But it feels like there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and then it eventually gets to Vince, and then it has to get approved. On those particular, on that particular side. And I have a feeling that a lot of us kind of knew that already, based off of Raw and SmackDown. Now, SmackDown honestly has been really good recently. I'm not going to bash the WWE product as much. I don't usually go as hard about bashing the WWE product as maybe some others do on that one. Raw has been relatively bad recently. SmackDown usually is really good. NXT, well, it's run by a different person in the company to begin with, but usually comes off really good. And we'll talk about NXT Takeover a little bit later. But that was my kind of general thought about the Talk Is Jericho show with Jon Moxley. I thought it came off really good on his end. I don't know what's going to happen with Renee on that particular side of everything. There was a lot of talk that nothing was really going to happen to Renee Young. That could be rethought because Jericho, even if it was only for like a second, Jericho is like, oh, hi, Renee. Like, she was there. Now, honestly, that was probably because this was filmed at Jon Moxley's house, at Jonathan Good's house. That's in Las Vegas. That's why she was probably there to begin with. But the fact that she got mentioned in this show, that was pretty scathingly, I won't say really scathing, but, you know, massively shooting on WWE's creative process and, well, pretty much Vince itself on that one. May have some ramifications to it. I don't know. I don't really see them doing much to Renee Young at this point, because I feel like they would want to keep her around, because even if she hasn't been the greatest on commentary, because that's a completely different thing than doing interviews or anything on that other side, and she is still fully learning that one, even though she had done some commentary down in NXT. She's been getting better on that side of everything. And I don't see them really doing anything, but you never know. With how, as I kind of put it during the Double or Nothing review with the whole Cody thing, how petty the wrestling business can kind of be in certain cases. Vince is no different on those ones. Like, I didn't like the whole Cody thing during his entrance, destroying the throne, because it came off as super cheesy and a bit petty to go along with it. Well, Vince is no different, and WWE is no different as well on those particular ones. If you throw it out there on someone else, you got to realize that those guys aren't any better to go along with it. But honestly, I thought it came off really good. It didn't come off as a guy who he didn't come off as a guy who was really bitter. He actually came off as somewhat grateful, grateful to the company. As I mentioned before, he was very grateful for the aspect of what WWE did for him as a person. Maybe not necessarily as a performer, but as a person. You know, he got to meet his best friend, his wife. He got to do a lot of different things in the company that he really did enjoy. And also, you know, even speaking of doing Make-A-Wishes and everything like that, and how that changed him as a person, and he was overly grateful for things like that. He was just very frustrated with maybe not necessarily his position in the company, but the way that they were handling him in general in the company. And it was definitely a good listen. I would highly recommend it if you haven't listened to it already. I would imagine by now, this is like Saturday night, that you probably have by this point, but if you haven't, I would actually go out there and listen to it. It came off really well done, and it was just really good. It was a really good insight of what was kind of going on, what we felt was going on, but now we're getting a little bit more confirmation, and it seems like that maybe Jonathan Good isn't necessarily, Jon Moxley is not necessarily the only one there. I think it was even mentioned after the Talk is Jericho episode that came out that Ryan Sapp was it Ryan Ross Sapp from Fightful put out a tweet. He's like, I think I owe an apology to Sasha now, because Sasha's been one that's always been considered to be very frustrated with what's been going on, and after that had been kind of going out there, it's like, okay, we can kind of see where they're coming from. We can kind of see where they're coming from now, and it's a very interesting one to see who else is rather frustrated backstage. You could probably come up with a bunch of different names on those particular ones, but we don't necessarily know without them actually coming out. Sasha's always been one that I think she's even said in interviews that she's been frustrated with the backstage stuff on the main roster side. When they were in NXT, completely different story. Main roster, it's not so much on those particular ones, but. I won't go off and start speculating the other names that are out there. I think a few of them popped up on Dave Meltzer's radio show as well. But I'm not one that speculates without, them kind of saying something to go along with it. But it'll be interesting to see who comes out a little bit more. And we kind of do see it on Twitter a little bit every now and again, where people are kind of frustrated with how things are going backstage in WWE. It's even been reported that morale is kind of at its lowest it's ever been in quite some time. So we'll see how everything goes off. And things that I would probably go off and say that maybe not really helped morale that much, I don't necessarily know. This entire episode of Monday Night Raw was a very interesting one. And a lot of people were kind of expecting them to come out guns a-blazing because of the Double or Nothing episode, or the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. But the episode of Monday Night Raw for May the 27th, 2019 really didn't come off that way. It came off as an episode of Monday Night Raw. Honestly, it came off as them treating this episode of Monday Night Raw as a Memorial Day episode, which, guess what? It was Memorial Day on Monday. So they did treat it as a holiday variation of Monday Night Raw, where not necessarily too much happened, but there was a lot of different things that you typically see when it comes to holiday editions of Monday Night Raw, especially for Monday holidays. They started off the episode with Kofi Kingston coming out. He wants Brock. This eventually brings out Seth Rollins. They both are wanting Brock Lesnar to come out. I do like how Kofi does at least make mention to dealing with Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens here very soon. On those particular ones, they do show the video package of Kofi getting beaten down by Dolph Ziggler, and he has his match at Super Showdown, which I am going to go off and say here and now. I'm going to go off and say this one here and now. I may talk about Super Showdown in the terms of the Raws and the SmackDowns coming up, but I am not going to be watching that yet again. Much like Crown Jewel, I am still not fully comfortable watching them based off of the stuff that had been originally going down since the Greatest Royal Rumble in the Saudi Arabia area. Nothing's really changed there on that side of me. On this one, I get why superstars would definitely be wanting to go over there because it's a very good payday for them on that one. For the ones who don't want to go over there, that's applauding to them as well. But you can definitely see, but I can always see why, you would want to go over there. It's a good payday. You have a family to feed, everything to go along with that. Never going to deny somebody who wants to try to provide for their family on that one. For other podcasters, as well as I made mention to during Crown Jewel, who are going to be covering the show, again, they have to think on what's best for their area. They go along with it. And I'm in a position on YouTube where I don't have to worry about that as much because I have a full-time job, everything on that one. That's not this. This is not what I do for a full-time job. This is a hobby of mine. This is what I do for fun to go along with it. And I'm not going to necessarily, it doesn't fall under my beliefs with where they are at right now with Saudi Arabia, not in the terms of WWE, because for all we know, they could be trying to, talk to them about other things like, hey, this, and this, and they may be trying to get women over there on the show and everything to go along with that. I need to get better lighting in some way, shape, or form, because I just saw that massive glare that came up over there. But yeah, I'm in a position where I can say, it's like, if I don't want to watch it, I don't have to watch it, and I don't have to talk about it either. I can come up with something else to talk about on those particular ones. To go along with it, and I can come up with something different to do on there, because that will be airing Friday, which happens to actually be a weird day off for me, or I wouldn't say weird, but one of my days off throughout the week, and I could technically watch it if I wanted to, but based off of like everything that happened with Khashoggi and the most recent events with the 37 people that got publicly executed, it just doesn't really fall under how I feel and everything to go along with that. It doesn't feel like, based off of what they're really going, what they're saying they're going for in Saudi Arabia, it doesn't really feel like they're going that path. So I'm still on an aspect of where I'm not gonna be watching those shows, at least for right now. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take them with a grain of salt when they come up twice a year on those ones. Crown Jewel I didn't watch, still haven't watched the show. I will concede to knowing the results of the show, because guess what? There's really no way for me not to know in some way, shape, or form, especially if something does end up going down there. You're going to end up knowing about it. But in the terms of watching the show and supporting the show, that is not what I'm going to do. I don't go as far as some people do with canceling WWE Network, mainly because based off of how my subscription works with that one and the time frame, there's still 2 shows that I would be watching this month, which would be one, NXT Takeover, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and the Stomping Ground pay-per-view on those ones. And I will show my support towards those, and I feel like that's where my money is going, not necessarily the Super Showdown, though I guess keeping the subscription on that particular one would technically mean it's going towards it, but based off of how I end up feeling and how my subscription actually works within there, it doesn't necessarily fully go towards that, which I'm okay with that a little bit more than I would be okay with necessarily watching the show and trying to support the show and enjoy it or anything like that. But I will sit back and enjoy NXT and a WWE pay-per-view in the terms of Stomping Ground later in the month, just not this one. So we'll get back into that. Both Brock and Seth, they both will, or well, Kofi and Seth, I said Brock. Both Kofi and Seth want Brock Lesnar to come out, and they want him to cash in on them, and they want him to do it tonight. Brock Lesnar comes out, and this was probably the most entertaining thing on Raw, and I'm kind of, it's kind of weird to say that Brock Lesnar was the most entertaining thing on Raw, but by far he was the most entertaining thing on Raw this week. The Brock Party, the Boombox briefcase, was absolutely hilarious. That was good stuff. And they were doing this weird thing where they were switching to the music, so switching the music around. So, and they went full 90s with it too, because boomboxes were kind of a 90s thing, a late 80s, early 90s thing, or throughout the 90s area. But so Brock has like full speakers into the briefcase itself. They start off with his original music, and then they go into this like basic generic 90s rap beat or just basic generic 90s beat, and he's coming out, he's got the hoodie on, and it's Brock Party on there. It was, oh my god, he started dancing to go along with it. It was it was worth it. It was worth him getting that Money in the Bank contract. It's absolutely insane. And I love Seth's reaction to this as well, because they're switching the music around. He gets into the ring, and it's like all of a sudden like Kofi's music. And it doesn't feel like it's coming through the speakers of the arena. It feels like it was coming through the speakers of the actual boombox itself. It felt like kind of a radio vibe to it, with both of their so it went through like New Day's music and then Seth's music, and he's like, oh, am I cashing in on you, or am I cashing in on you? And he's just bobbing his head to go along with it. It was entertaining. It was entertaining. But I loved Seth's reaction. Is like, he just throws down the microphone and walks off, just leaves. So Brock was not going to choose yet, because Paul Heyman is like, no. You know, Seth ruined the party. Seth ruined the party, which means we're not going to choose right now to go along with it. I also did like the aspect of when Seth's music was hitting, Paul Heyman was trying to do the air guitar bit. Brock sees him and is like, no, cut that off. To go along with it. It's just like, you do whatever Brock says, type of thing. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. As they left, Kofi was kind of trying to get Brock to come back down and choose him. He gets attacked by Dolph Ziggler. He starts kind of an extended beatdown where he does use a chair on Kofi. Eventually Xavier Woods comes out. He will chase off Dolph Ziggler originally. They cut to commercial break. As they come back from commercial break, and this is a very extended thing that actually goes through multiple commercial breaks as well. As they come back from commercial break, Xavier's helping Kofi up the rampway, and when they come back, Dolph Ziggler dashes back through the crowd, back up the rampway, and attacks Xavier Woods, and he goes through an extensive beatdown of Xavier at that point in time, to the point that Dolph gained control and was going to do like a spot where, with the chair in Xavier's head area, so he was going to try to do something where he was going to crack or like crush the chair on his neck or something like that. Kofi comes back down and chases him off. They cut the commercial break again. When they come out, Dolph comes back out through the rampway, cuts a promo on Kofi, and that's how they ending it. The segment itself was very extended, and it made it come off to the area of like, because it was like a good 35 minutes of the show, or even longer of the show, that this was happening. It made it to the aspect of, well, pretty much the first hour of the show, we didn't really get a match on that one. And it came off, I thought it came off pretty good. With the exception of the promo, I wasn't all that great towards the promo portion of Dolph's on that one. But overall, I thought it was a fairly effective way of getting Dolph over going into their match on that one. And I thought it came off pretty good in the end. I know in the sense of like having a wrestling match and not having one for practically the first hour of the show comes off really weird on that one, but this aspect of where they were going and coming back and they're still kind of going at it was an interesting aspect, and it feels like that they are trying something different with the format of the show of, cutting the commercial even after a beatdown. Usually after you've had a beatdown of some kind, you cut the commercial, you come back, you do the next thing. No, they're still going with it. I thought it was an interesting way of going about it. I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure most people didn't necessarily like it on that one, but I thought it came off interesting and effective towards Dolph on that one. And yeah, it wasn't that bad. Honestly, it wasn't that bad. This week's Raw wasn't that bad, honestly, to me. But that's also because of kind of the Brock stuff as well, because I thought that was kind of entertaining to go along with it. You had a Memorial Day party with the Usos. The Usos were saying everyone's invited but the Revival. We'll find out later in the episode or later in the show that he was actually invited. Or they were actually invited, but they were invited by Naomi. Naomi were the ones that were doing that, and they did do a couple of bits where they were playing cornhole and everything and trying to have fun. Eventually it gets to the point that they are going to get into a bit of a brawl, but then it gets broken up because after the Revival kind of cheat in cornhole, they start having a big argument and everything to go along with it. But that gets interrupted by R-Truth showing up with a 24/7 title, and then that kind of starts up, and the big brawl begins with that on that particular one. And the chase throughout the night with the 24/7 which is still a very interesting thing. You don't have to spend too much time on it to get it across, but honestly I kind of like the 24/7 title concept. Like I said, or how I may mention and kind of felt about it, I like the concept. The title itself looks bad, don't get me wrong. It was definitely thought up of in maybe one meeting sitting, and then it's like, here's a design, let's go make it, let's get it out there, and let's just get it out there type thing. But the concept itself, I think, is actually very good. It gets people who aren't generally on TV on that one. It's not designed to be a super serious title, but it is definitely something out there that could probably, I think, based off of what they end up doing, could end up helping some people. And the stuff with Drake Maverick as well is absolutely fantastic, with the whole flyers and everything that go along with that. The aspect of R-Truth and Carmella trying to help him out, which that's going to lead to something at some point in time as well. I have been enjoying the 24/7 stuff. We got to see we saw a little bit more of that after the whole Brock and Seth segment that they ran out into the arena. They fought off like Cedric Alexander. He fights off Cedric Alexander and a bunch of other guys, and then him and Carmella chase off into the areas of the arena as well, which I thought came off pretty good on that one. You also had a Shane McMahon interview saying that he was going to be having a match tonight, which he comes out there for his match. It was going to be with somebody with the Samoan dynasty, basically saying he was Roman's cousin. I don't think he might have actually been Roman's cousin. I don't know on this one, but it was called, but he went by the name Lance Anoa'i. On that one, I hope I said that name right. This match was not really a match. Drew McIntyre destroys Lance before the match even starts. Shane goes off as like, this is uncalled for, but while he's still here in the ring, why don't you ring the bell? Shane wins rather quick. They continue to beat down afterwards. Roman comes out to make the save. Roman looks like he's going to get his hands on Shane, but Drew pulls him out of the ring. After this, you have Brock coming back out. It's like, who is Brock going to cash in on? And then, Seth basically comes out and says that he's a joke. for hiding behind Paul and everything to go along with that. It's like he doesn't call, he says the briefcase thing itself is not the joke. Brock is the joke. And then Paul starts reading through the contract, and he gets to this point. He gets to this point of saying it's like, said recipients of the contract has until May 19th, 2020. And then you just see almost the light bulb go off in Brock's head. Like you see the bing thing. Is like, wait a minute. I have a year? I have a year to do this. And you just see Paul go like, you didn't know? No, I didn't know. It's totally a Brock thing to not even know the rules of the thing that he won on that part. It was great. Because like I said, it's just like, because he starts slapping Paul with the contract and is like, screw you, I'm out of here. I'm not cashing in right now. I've got a year. I can do what I want. It's like, screw you guys. I'm going home. And like I said, it was absolutely fantastic because it's totally a Brock thing to not even fully realize what he had at that point in time. I thought that was great. You did have an AJ Styles interview on why he was taken out of the match. He was originally put in the Fatal 4-Way elimination match, which we'll talk about a little bit later, for a shot at the Universal title. He has been taken out due to injury. Baron Corbin is replacing him. He does get attacked by Baron Corbin in the trainer's office. I don't necessarily know why. Oh, wait, it was because he got slapped. So that was the payback, I guess. On that one, you have Becky Lynch and Nikki Cross going up against the Iconics. This is a good match. Don't get it wrong. The Iconics and Nikki Cross and Becky Lynch, I thought, put on a pretty decent match here. On that one, Becky pins Peyton Royce with what is a pump handle kind of rock bottom-esque move that they're calling the manhandle slam. It came off a little awkward on this one. I would assume it'll probably look better once people kind of practice it a little bit more on that one. But again, kind of making the tag team titles for the women's side. Again, it's like your women's tag team champions got beat again. Have they won a match since the jobber match? I don't know. I'm not sure if the Iconics have actually won a tag. I would have to think about that and actually look that up. I'm not sure if the Iconics have won a TV match since winning the jobber match on SmackDown after WrestleMania. So it's basically WrestleMania they won, and then that jobber match, and it's been pretty much downhill ever since. And yeah, they're jobbing out those tag titles pretty hard right now. Lacey Evans, after this match, does her Abe Simpson impression, and that basically ended that one. You had Ricochet and Cesaro, which was a very good match between the two of them. They definitely did a lot in this match. Again, it was kind of like the match last week, where it was just really well done, very fast paced, very well paced, but also still selling with the ending, which was absolutely fantastic. Ricochet does a handstand onto the ring apron, that like he was going to try to do a reverse Rana to Cesaro outside the ring. Cesaro pulls him up. He comes back and Ricochet reverses it into the Hurricane Rana pin combination to pick up the victory. Ricochet, he comes up with very innovative things to do his offense, and I thought it was really good. Very enjoyable match for Monday Night Raw on that one. Can't understate that enough. Ricochet and Cesaro have been doing really, really well. Up next, you had them giving out some information on Rey Mysterio. It seems like he separated his shoulder at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view after winning. They do make mention to Samoa Joe's arm being up on that one. Then they basically said that said that Rey Mysterio was going to relinquish the title next week. Samoa Joe comes out, cuts a promo on it, and basically he's waiting to get not the Intercontinental title, but his U.S. title back. You have Miz and Braun cutting promos on on the Fatal 4-Way match, which was next. The Braun stuff, he came out super intense on this one. He was cutting it from gorilla position. It looks like he was cutting it live too, because his music hits up in the background, like mid-promo on that one, and then he comes out. I thought these were pretty good stuff for their promos. Up next was that Fatal 4-Way match, which was also a very good match between Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Braun Strowman and The Miz. You have a lot of work between Baron Corbin and Bobby Lashley. They were kind of teaming up through there to try to go after Miz and Strowman, with a little bit of fighting in between there. Eventually, Lashley and Strowman take themselves out of the match, which was kind of explained a little bit later. Because they fight to the back, leaving only Miz and Baron Corbin. Eventually, Corbin hits the end of days and eliminates Miz, and that was basically it. There was only one pinfall, because they deemed it that Lashley and Strowman took themselves out of the match by leaving the arena on that one. I guess that's where they're going with it. It's, I guess, one way of getting out of actually eliminating them from a match to go along with it. On that side, but it is what it is there. Up next, we have the Firefly Funhouse. Still my favorite thing on Raw, or SmackDown, really. Well, on SmackDown, there's other things that are actually quite good. But on Raw, this is where we usually see the first thing of Firefly Funhouse. And then they replay it on SmackDown. This was a very good episode, and it kind of explains a little bit more what was going on. So over the last couple weeks, Bray Wyatt has had his little secret, and we've seen this super creepy, elaborate costume that he has for his new character, and he's back into normal Bray, but he only has a paper mask in front of him, and he brings it out. He has that kind of mean look. He goes "Hi everyone." And it's just perks up out of nowhere, saying that this guy is "Did you like my little secret? I call him the Fiend. But don't worry, he's not here to hurt us. He's here to protect us." Abby the Witch comes in there. It's "Bray, don't lie to everybody. You're saying this because you don't want them to think you're some kind of sick human being." It's "No, I'm not that." It's "What are you, some kind of doctor?" And he goes does that whole cartoonish kid show type thing where he goes down, comes up, he's in a doctor thing. He calls Abby the Witch a bully, and then it's she makes mention of being stuck in limbo, which is an interesting aspect of the saying that is that she herself is stuck in limbo, that she can't actually rest. And you just have Bray laughing. It's "I'm never gonna let you rest" on that one. But then when she says limbo, is "Did you say limbo?" And he does the limbo bit with the two kids, and if you've ever back, because if I've ever really remembered watching those kids shows, because those are the things that actually creep me out. This is one of the things why I like the Firefly Funhouse, is because it plays off of the aspect of these kid-like shows coming off a little bit creepy, because they always do. But you always have the kids having this faraway look that either they're disinterested or they're kind of sheepish on those particular ones. They're holding up the limbo stick. He does the spider walk under there. It's "Let me in." And that's where they cut off at. Oh, man. The Firefly Funhouse stuff is great. This is really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. And I'll be interested to see what his first feud actually ends up being, and whether or not he's going to be doing a mixture of wrestling in the Fiend aspect, or if he's going to be this happy Bray figure, that the almost Mr. Rogers figure for a part of it, and then the Fiend is for something else to go along with it. Who knows where they're going to go with this? But I am actually liking this stuff so far. For Monday Night Raw, where we usually get to see it first, it's by far one of the most entertaining things, though. I did thoroughly enjoy the Brock stuff this week. I'm sorry, the Brock stuff was really good. Oddly enough, this next segment, which could have been a complete dumpster fire of a segment, actually came off pretty decent. It was called the Electric Chair. So Corey Graves is hosting a segment called the Electric Chair, where a superstar is going to be out there. They're sitting in a chair and fielding questions from the WWE universe. It's supposed to be uncensored, everything to go along with it. Sami Zayn is the first one. The questions themselves were, I don't know if they were just given to the people, but they definitely didn't feel like those people were plants in any way, shape, or form. I guess if they do continue doing this, they'll probably use plants from now on. But the questions themselves were kind of, really? Going there? Oh. But I like Sammy's responses by basically not answering the questions in some way, shape, or form. But even towards the end going like, come on, you guys got to, pick this stuff up. You can ask me anything. You can even ask me about AEW. He does the bit there. I thought Sammy came off pretty good in this one. I don't know. There's a lot of mentions of whether or not that AEW line was scripted in there. I would imagine it would be. I don't see Sammy necessarily going out on his own about that one to go along with it. He definitely had some predisposed answers for what was going on those ones, but there's like conflicting reports. Some people saying that it was completely scripted. Some people saying he went off script. I guess they're basically going off of what happened, like Seth, because they make mention to Seth Rollins in the Universal title. Seth does eventually come out rather quickly after that mention on that one. And Seth does throw the chair as well. I don't know if they're going to continue doing it because they've, done the bit where they've thrown the chair now. So they may not necessarily be doing that anymore. But who knows? I guess they could still do it. This does lead to Sami Zayn going up against Seth Rollins. I kind of find this funny. I know you guys probably wouldn't be seeing this over there, but I'm looking at my notes. I have it Sami Zayn versus Sami Zayn, with Rollins winning the match, which is kind of weird. But it was Seth Rollins going up against Sami Zayn, which was a good match, but nothing really of consequence there. The match itself I thought was really good. Seth Rollins does go over in the end. They do play it up a little bit that, Brock's still in the arena, everything on that one, but Brock doesn't come out to cash in. So Monday Night Raw, kind of good. Kind of okay. It wasn't what people were kind of expecting. They were expecting some kind of like massive response to AEW, and honestly it came off as more of a holiday episode of Monday Night Raw on that one. So that's what it was. SmackDown for May the 28th, I thought was actually a fairly good show. Again, SmackDown is usually pretty good in all senses of the word. Usually on a weekly basis, it is a solid show. And I thought it was a pretty solid show again here. Again, not much of consequence really going on. And honestly, that's probably because I'm more than likely not, because I'm not watching the Super Showdown event, that many of these things don't really come off as like heavy consequence, because they're building to that right now, and they're not necessarily building the stomping ground. They're making mention to it, but they're not necessarily building to it. So that's probably one of the reasons why I feel like nothing of consequence is really going on. Kevin Owens starts the show saying that he was going to do a KO show, but doesn't feel like that this town deserves it. He does say that he had nothing to do with Big E's attack, so they're throwing that storyline out there. Kofi comes out and interrupts, calls him a liar, cuts a promo on Owens. They have their match, which Kevin Owens and Kofi Kingston, again, pretty good match. Kofi does go over. They're giving Kofi big wins going into his matches right now. And they've been booking him really well since becoming like a more mega over babyface. And I thought it, again, in this situation, a very good match. You don't really have anything new with him and Dolph in this one on there. Afterwards, you have R-Truth and Carmella backstage. They are continuing trying to hide. They hide in a laundry room this time. Drake Maverick comes out there and he's putting posters on the wall, puts one on the door. As he walks by, they sneak off. We see more continuation of the 24/7 title to go along with that. You have Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan coming out. They do an interview in the ring calling the tag division a joke. Even Eric Rowan doing like a cheesy knock-knock joke, which actually came off pretty good on that one, because just the way that they went for it. They make the crowd cheer for the things that they do with the planet as well. This eventually brings Heavy Machinery out. They want a shot at the tag titles. A ref does actually come out in this one, so you're thinking it's like, oh, maybe this is actually happening, and it's like, no, it's not gonna it's gonna happen at some point. It's just not gonna happen now. They leave. Daniel Bryan's stuff is fantastic. His in-ring interviews and promos are absolutely fantastic with everything that he does, because there is a lot of passion behind it. There's a lot going into each one, and it's even funnier with the aspect that the crowd, when he starts lambasting them for things that they do to like harm the planet or anything to go along with it, the crowd cheers for the factor that they're doing this. It's like, oh my god, Daniel Bryan, you're such a good heel on those particular ones. You like, for a guy who we really love the factor that he came back to wrestling and was able to come back and be cleared, to get the hate that he does right now it is a little bit mind-blowing, but it just goes to show how good he is at being a heel with those ones. Up next, you had a backstage segment with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. They're handing out magazines of Mandy Rose's cover for Muscle and Fitness Hers. They were talking to, they showed up to the Iconics. They kind of just brush off the Iconics, which is what I guess a lot of people have really been doing recently on that one. They get to they do come up to eventually Ember Moon, who's reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Sonya Deville spoils the ending, and it's like, okay. Ember kind of gives the look, is like, I'm just rereading this. I know the ending on this particular one. But then they go to that point of trying to continually poke fun at her because she's not a star or anything. It's like, she could use a magazine. And then they eventually just give her a bunch on that one. In the terms of their heel side, very good stuff. On there, this does lead to Carmella and Mandy Rose in the ring, which ended with kind of a distraction roll-up on this one. I thought this was a pretty decent match. Mandy Rose picking up the victory after pretty much a distraction roll-up from Sonya Deville on that one. I thought it came off pretty good. Backstage, you get R-Truth being attacked by Jinder Mahal. He's trying to fight him. He does eventually fight off Jinder Mahal and ends up hiding in a photo booth. You see Jinder and a bunch of guys run by. You see and it looks like Truth was in the clear. He comes out, he runs into Drake Maverick and sends everything flying. He was like originally gonna just try to help Drake. Is like, oh, sorry, and then they realized who they were, and then all of a sudden Truth's gone again on that one. I thought that was pretty good. Alistair, like I said, I like the 24/7 stuff. I think it's actually kind of fun on that one. Alistair Black does a promo. He's been doing promos backstage, and he's like, everybody's just waiting for me to say a name, somebody I'm gonna pick a fight with. It's like, no, I'm not gonna pick a fight with anybody. I'm waiting for somebody to pick a fight with me. I thought this was pretty good. They've been doing pretty good stuff with Aleister Black and everything with these particular promos. This one probably shows his motivations a little bit more, that he's not here to pick a fight with people. He wants somebody to pick the fight with him, and we'll see how that one, and see who ends up being that first one with that particular thing. Up next, you have a Shane McMahon appreciation night. You have Drew McIntyre and Elias out there. They have a video package, which they do have. He does credit Kevin Dunn for, which gets a little smattering of boos. And he does cut a promo on Roman Reigns about what he's going to do at Super Showdown. Elias wants to sing a song, but it gets interrupted by R-Truth, who is being chased by Drake Maverick. He ends out realizing that Drake's the only one chasing him, so he ends up pinning him and defending the 24/7 title, which then he realized that Shane McIntyre and Elias are there. And it's like, and they're all discussed as like, you ruined the Shane and McMahon appreciation night. So they end up beating down R-Truth. Elias does the drift away, and then McIntyre does the Claymore. And then Elias runs over, gets the pin, and is now the new 24/7 champion. I like how Drew's just like gives him that dirty look and then just kind of smiles at the aspect of it. Which eventually Shane makes a match for later in the night, which ends up being Elias and Elias and McIntyre going up against R-Truth and Roman Reigns, and he suspends the 24/7 rule until after the match. And they make a specific aspect is like, after the match, everything goes again with it on that one. So you kind of get a feeling of where everything's going to go with that. You have Lacey Evans and Charlotte backstage cutting a promo on Lacey's match with Bayley. They're also having tea with that one, you know, trying to play off of how classy they are. The match with Bayley and Lacey Evans, I thought, was a pretty good match on that one. Lacey Evans is actually quite good, I think. In the ring, I think she's actually quite good, and she plays off her character really well. Bayley, and this, the way Bayley ends up winning this match was her countering a roll-up with one of her own after Charlotte tries to get in the ring, which gets set up originally. Bayley gets thrown out of the ring. Charlotte trash talks her, then trash talks her a little bit more. She gets Lacey Evans back into the ring, and then Bayley attacks Charlotte and then gets back in the ring. This forces Charlotte to try to get in. That's where that happened. And they play it off as like, okay, maybe Lacey Evans would have had the roll-up victory and everything to go along with that, but it gets countered. Bayley ends out winning, leaves. Lacey Evans tries to attack Charlotte, and Charlotte eventually turns it around and actually takes out Lacey Evans at that point. And you just have Bayley up at the ramp like, well, we got the friends to fight. She even did like the kind of almost the Yana like type bit to go along with it. I thought that was pretty good on that one. And honestly, I thought the whole thing was pretty good to begin with. The whole thing on that one was good on that one. I'm not sure if that means that their whole thing with Charlotte and Lacey is pretty much over with, or they're going to have a match. We'll see where they end up going with that particular one, but they definitely have a little bit of a beef with each other now. Up next, you had an Andrade interview, which was on his match with Finn Balor, and also cuts a full promo on Finn on this one. It's full Andrade with this. Zelina Vega not doing any of the talking on this one. Andrade's gotten pretty good at the English side of everything. So, yeah. Overall, I thought it was a good promo, good effective promo. Andrade's actually really good at the promo side right now. This leads to R-Truth and Roman Reigns going up against Elias and Drew McIntyre. R-Truth gets attacked before the match even starts. Honestly, I thought this was a pretty good tag match to finish off the show. And overall, just came off really entertaining on that particular one. They do a lot of work over on Truth, and does kind of do the whole aspect of stacking the odds against Roman on that. And Shane tries to get involved. Eventually, that does fully fail. Roman spears Elias to pick up the victory, and to pick up the victory over that one. Drew McIntyre even misses like a Claymore on the outside and goes flying onto the announce table, like a really crazy looking spot on that one. After the match, Roman kind of realizes what's going on because Drew is taking Shane up to the top of the ramp. He looks at Elias, and he just looks at Elias or not looks at Elias, but he just looks at the ref like, this is good now, right? We can do the 24/7 thing. And they're like, yeah. And this is full on what, and I like how they're keeping this to the Roman character, in that sense, because when he said coming back, that's not necessarily all about titles. It's about message. They even play that up here. He spears Elias again, and he encourages Truth to cover Elias, and then of course Truth gets back the 24/7 title. And overall, I thought SmackDown was pretty good again. SmackDown overall, I thought was pretty good. The aspect of them using the 24/7 title, even in the main event side of everything, I thought was a good way of going as well. For that, and again, overall, I enjoyed SmackDown. It's just how I feel, though. I honestly do enjoy SmackDown as a show itself. So, with that being said, I think we are just about an hour into the episode. We've been talking a lot about everything, and we will be continually going on with this particular one. Up next, we won't talk about NXT's weekly show, outside the aspect of there wasn't. Well, I wouldn't say there wasn't anything going on, because at the end of the night, you had the Forgotten Sons going up against Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, which was for the Fatal Four, which was a match that was a portion of the Fatal 4-Way. That was tonight. That got interrupted by the Street Profits and the Undisputed Era. You had Mia Yim picking up a victory over Bianca Belair. On those ones, you also have the indication of Candice LeRae being on the side of Io Shirai. With that, they did have promos for those ones where Shayna's like, she has no friends, she has no weapons, and I still have all my backup. And they also do a thing with Io going like, that's absolutely fine. And it also brings out that Candice LeRae is going to be on her side as well. So let's get into NXT TakeOver. NXT TakeOver 25, which was on June the 1st, 2019. And I'm waiting for that one time that is like, this show severely disappointed me, like to the point that it was a thumbs down show, and you just don't get it with NXT. As many people might have known that from my last one, or I won't say many people, but the few people that maybe have watched it, from my last review of NXT TakeOver, that is the most meh I've ever really felt about NXT TakeOver. I know a lot of people were having like super glowing reviews over that one. I didn't like it as much as others at the time. But this NXT TakeOver, I thought was much better. I found this one to be far more enjoyable, and I found the Johnny Gargano Adam Cole match to be better than their 2 out of 3 falls match. I know in the terms of reviews, people are saying it was the greatest match in NXT history. I don't believe that to be the case. I felt like this match was far better that they did here on that one, just storyline wise and everything to go along with it. The outcome of Johnny Gargano picking up the victory, I thought was good at the NXT TakeOver from New York. But their match as a whole, I didn't enjoy it as many others did, and I kind of also voiced my opinion about that in that particular review as well. I'm sure if you look back, you may be able to find that one. But let's go ahead and start with with everything at the beginning of the show, which was Roderick Strong going up against Adam Riddle, and oh boy, this was a hard-hitting affair. And of course, Roderick Strong working over the back throughout the entire match as well, and they do play that up into the match itself. I like that aspect of, even with Matt Riddle being much larger than Roderick Strong, Roderick Strong is still able to get that aspect of the Messiah, of the backbreaker over, and it just comes off really good in this particular match. He works over the back throughout the entire match, to the point that, he can't get that Matt Riddle can't get the bro mission in throughout the match. Eventually, Matt Riddle does pick up the victory, though. And based off of where they were going on this show, it was not looking good for the Undisputed Era. He picks up the victory over Roderick Strong. There was no interference on this one, so I think there was a lot of people thinking there would be a bunch of interference with these matches, but there was not on that. And honestly, I thought it came off really good. I did thoroughly enjoy Roderick Strong and Matt Riddle on that one. And like I said, you didn't suspect them to have Matt Riddle lose at 2 straight takeovers. I guess you never know what would have happened, but in most cases, I didn't suspect it either, that they would not have not put him over in some way, shape, or form, in some way at 2 straight takeovers where he would basically lose on that one. So I kind of expected Matt Riddle to go over. I thoroughly enjoyed the match, and they did tell a pretty decent story to go along with that. And also their setup to the match is like you saw Roddy being more aggressive in this particular match than he had been in other matches as well, to go along with it. So this leads us to the Fatal 4-Way ladder match for the NXT Tag Team titles. And can we say insanity on that one? It was the Undisputed Era. It was Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly going up against the Forgotten Sons. The Forgotten Sons in there. Then it was also the Street Profits, and it was Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch. And I'll just go off and say that this was absolute insanity. I can't even really call all the spots that they pulled off in this one, but there was a lot of people falling on a lot of ladders, and what was it? Kyle O'Reilly was the one taking like the vast majority of them, and how that guy, you probably saw it through his back as well because it was bleeding like a good portion of the match. Just how he was standing in any way, shape, or form at the end of the night, or even after this match, you'll never, honestly never know. But like just everything that they were doing in this one, it just felt like a different vibe for a ladder match than what you traditionally get as well. In those particular ones, even in tag team ladder matches that you would get on the main roster, it just had a different vibe, a different feel. And it felt like they were coming up with spots that you normally had not seen, or just maybe haven't seen in quite some time in those particular matches. I even like the aspect of when Riker came out to interfere in the match itself. I like how they did it. He just kind of comes out, and you see Kyle O'Reilly. He's at like the foot of the ladder. He just gets this wide-eyed look, and then they cut to the entrance ramp, and here he comes. And then you see Kyle trying to scramble up the ladder as he comes into the ring. And then eventually everybody who wasn't the Forgotten Sons just destroy Riker. And it was absolute insanity on that particular, in this particular match. It ends with it looking like the Forgotten Sons were going to pick up the victory. But the Street Profits knocked them off the ladder, and they were the only ones left. And lo and behold, the Street Profits finally get their spot in getting those tag team titles. And this match was it was fantastic. It was hard to watch in the terms of some of the bumps that these guys were taking in the end to go along with it. It was just absolute insanity on that one. And yeah, it came off really good. Up next was the North American Championship match, which was going to be Velveteen Dream going up against Tyler Breeze. And you know what? They put on a pretty good match here. Tyler Breeze coming back, and it seems like he's going to be back in NXT on a full-time basis now at this point in time. But coming back to basically fight the person that took his variation, or kind of did his own variation of the Tyler Breeze character to a certain degree. Like, they both have their big differentiating, but they're, you know, like the massively flamboyant and style characters to go along with that. This was a very enjoyable match. People getting behind Tyler Breeze throughout the match and everything to go along with it. I did thoroughly enjoy this one. They did kind of get over the aspect of both of them kind of flaunting around inside of this particular match, also with a bit of a mixture of hard hitting to go along with it. And and each one of them trying to use each other's moves as well to kind of do a style of a one-upsmanship in this particular match. They did make a tease for the for Tyler Breeze to pick up the victory. He hits the beauty shot, but Velveteen Dream gets out of the ring, and as he's trying to get himself back, or as Tyler Breeze is trying to get him back in the ring, Velveteen Dream grabs the US or the North American title, goes to use it, but Tyler Breeze catches it, then like looks at it as like, oh, then chucks it at the ref. This allows enough of a distraction for Velveteen Dream to hit the Dream Valley Driver into the Purple Rainmaker to pick up the victory in what was a fairly entertaining match. It'll be interesting to see if Tyler Breeze is going to be down there on a full-time basis, or if it was just kind of a one-off thing. And it will be interesting to see maybe who does go back down to NXT for some time or anything like that, because they are not being used on the main roster in any way, shape, or form. Maybe they have Fandango go back down there and they do the fashion police down there. I don't know. I doubt they'll do that, because it seems like Tyler Breeze is kind of back into full supermodel variation character on that one. But we'll see where that one ends out going and how they end up playing out with that one. Up next was the Women's Championship match, which was Shayna Baszler going up against Io Shirai. And this... I thoroughly enjoy the Shayna Baszler stuff, but that's basically because I do enjoy her character. She comes off as a more deliberate, bully-style character, and that's how she comes off in her matches as well, which, yes, does mean they're slower paced. They're not like a super high work rate pace or anything to go along with that, but they do come off very good in what the stories that they're trying to come off with in this one. She does stomp on Io Shirai's arm and starts working over the arm throughout the match, but Io continues to fight back, eventually getting enough control to where Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir do come out to try to interfere, which immediately has Candice LeRae come out wielding a kendo stick. And the usage of the kendo stick from Candice LeRae was absolutely great, because she just comes out there swinging it like a mad person. She hits Jessamyn Duke, and then she hits Marina Shafir, but still almost like hitting Jessamyn Duke again with it. And eventually one of them grabs her, and you just, as they're trying to swing Candice around, she's also swinging the kendo stick at somebody with it, trying to continue on the fight. And she does take care of both of them. While that's going on in the ring, it does set up for the ending of the match, which had Io Shirai miss a moonsault, but she does set it up to where she gets like a almost like an Oklahoma roll crucifix pin, which exposes her neck to Shayna Baszler, and she puts on the Kennefer clutch, which Io Shirai cannot fight out of, and then she eventually not passes out, but does lightly tap out. After the match, though, that was the thing. Shayna Baszler does pick up the victory in this match. But after the match is where the other aspect of the story goes, and that does lead you to believe that maybe they're not quite done, and maybe we have some kind of no disqualification match coming up here soon with them, because Io Shirai goes absolutely crazy at the end of the match and comes back in wielding the kendo stick and beats down Shayna Baszler. But not only doing that, she goes up to the top for a moonsault, but uses it with a chair. She does a moonsault with a chair and landing on Shayna Baszler, and basically continuing this storyline. And I feel like we're going to get some kind of no disqualification match coming up here, maybe for the next takeover, probably around SummerSlam. That's my my suspicion that where it'll be. We'll see if they continue something with the NXT tapings when they do get outside of the taping that was probably done at this takeover as well. So we'll see how that one ends up playing out. This leads us to the main event of the night, which was Adam Cole, baby. Yeah, I'm gonna say baby. I don't know why, but I do. Going up against Johnny Gargano for the NXT title. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this match a lot more than the 2 out of 3 falls match. I'm not going to say that the 2 out of 3 falls match was bad, but I did not rate it as high as many other people did on that particular one. I thought this match was actually thoroughly better on that side. Maybe it was because of the story that they set up going in there with that between the two of them. Or maybe they have more time to prepare. I don't necessarily know. Maybe because I was still more in the mode of Johnny Gargano being in a storyline with Tommaso Ciampa at that time. Just did not make that match at TakeOver New York feel as good as the one that they did here at TakeOver 25. And like I said, I just thoroughly enjoyed this match. It didn't feel like they were kicking out too much. They did kick out of each other's finishers at least once in this particular one, but it didn't feel like in the end they were kicking out of too much. And you do get both of them trying to use each other's moves. You have this sick spot and the thud as well that happened for the thud that happened on this particular one. As well, when Johnny Gargano goes for a suicide dive but gets hit with a super kick and he just falls to the ground, which was absolutely insane. What was it? Adam Cole does do the destroyer on the outside of the ring. I forget what he calls it. They call it something other than the Canadian destroyer or the destroyer style pile driver. On that one, he does do that on the outside of the ring. He does eventually get him back in there to try to get a pinfall. That leads to a near fall. Adam Cole does fight out of a Gargano's escape, and Gargano does kick out of the last shot Shining Wizard. They do switch finishers, which of course it doesn't fully work in the end. Towards the end of the match, though, you had Johnny Gargano have the Gargano escape in, but Adam Cole was able to fight out of it because he had been working over the knee during the match itself. So he starts hitting the knee multiple times, was forced to break the hold. He looks to do the destroyer again. It gets countered into a roll up, but that only gets a 2 count. Adam Cole goes for it again because Johnny Gargano is still a little worse for wear, hits the destroyer, goes into the last shot Shining Wizard, and picks up the victory. Yes, Adam Cole is the NXT champion, and honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed this match much more than their NXT Takeover match. Maybe it was just based off of story and everything to go along with it, because it felt like they had more of a story going into this particular match, and the story that they told throughout the match as well, I felt was just better. After the match, you have Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish coming out. Bobby Fish was in a sling. Hopefully he's not injured like too severely. There was rumor that he was injured going into that match, but you didn't really notice it during the match itself. So hopefully he's not injured too severely and will be not out for an extended period of time like he was before on that one. But they come out and celebrate, and that's how they end up going off the air. Honestly, again, TakeOver doesn't disappoint in the terms of ever being a thumbs down show. It's always a thumbs up show to me. And this was an extremely good show on this one. I felt this one came off better than NXT New York, but then again, I had a different feeling about that particular show than I think some other people did. I just didn't thoroughly enjoy that one as much as many of the other NXT takeovers. But TakeOver 25, I did thoroughly enjoy. I thought this was actually a very good show. And yeah, overall, I didn't find a match being on the show being bad or anything. And I did like the stories that they went through all the particular matches as well. So overall, very good show. Good going for the NXT side of everything. And that is basically everything I've got this week. We went a little bit longer than we normally do. Well, maybe not. Usually I'm in between that hour and a half section for the weekly shows. So with that being said, though, that is everything I got this week for GodSaw's Turnbuckle. We will be back next week with hopefully more either more news or whatever ends up happening throughout the week. We'll go over Raw and SmackDown and NXT. I may start going over Impact itself, but also You can check out on the Twitch side as well that I will be doing live streams as they do go live with a co-stream and live reactions to them. So you'll be able to check that out there. Maybe I'll start bringing that in there as well. I've been enjoying. I have been enjoying Impact Wrestling as of late, so to go along with that, Michael Elgin's there now, and you have stuff with Johnny Impact or Johnny Mundo and everything to go along with that. I'm enjoying some of the new guys that I'm not fully familiar with, such as the Rascals on that one, and LAX kind of, you know, playing up that serious but also kind of joking way of doing things as well. I thought they've come off pretty good, and yeah, overall I've been enjoying Impact as of late. So with that being said, though, I hope you guys enjoyed everything. Peace out, take care, and have a great rest of your day.